Hi everybody. Welcome to our channel, The Scary Tales. Our scary and horror stories are designed to send chills down your spine. Enjoy the spine-tingling stories thrill. Here's your horror stories about food delivery. 1. The disappearing delivery driver. Lisa ordered sushi around midnight. She watched her delivery app as the driver got closer to her home. When the app finally said order delivered, she opened the door. Nothing was there. Thinking he left it at the wrong house, she checked her security camera footage. The recording showed the driver approaching her porch, but instead of leaving the food, he just stood there. His head slowly tilted as if he was staring into the camera. After a few moments, he grinned, a wide, unnatural smile, then turned around and walked away, taking the food with him. She reported it to the app. The response: "We have no record of a driver with that name working for us." 2. The extra ingredient. Mark had a long day at work and ordered pizza from his favorite local joint. He was halfway through a slice when he bit into something tough and rubbery. Thinking it was a bad piece of cheese, he pulled it out of his mouth, only to find a bloody band-aid baked into the cheese. Disgusted, he immediately called the restaurant. But when he described what he found, the manager fell silent before finally saying, "That's not possible. None of our staff had injuries tonight." The worst part: the band-aid looked old, the blood long dried, almost brown. 3. The fake delivery driver. Working a night shift at the hospital, Megan was starving. She ordered food from a local restaurant and waited in the break room. Eventually, a man wearing a delivery uniform knocked. But when she opened the door slightly, he didn't hand her the food. Instead, he asked, "Are you alone?" A chill ran down her spine. She pushed the door shut and locked it. The man lingered for a moment before walking away. When she checked the app, her order still said, "Out for delivery." 10 minutes later, the real delivery driver arrived, with her food. The man at the door: he wasn't a driver at all. 4. The cold, dead hands. Jake, a college student, ordered late-night Chinese takeout. When the driver arrived, he looked awful: pale skin, dark circles under his eyes, and an overall sickly appearance. Jake hesitated but took the bag and paid. Later that night, he was watching TV when a breaking news story came on. It was about a fatal accident hours earlier. The screen showed a picture of the driver, the same one who delivered his food. But the timestamp on the accident was at 8:00 p.m. Jake got his food at 9:30 p.m. 5. The wrong order from hell. Ethan ordered his usual burger and fries from a nearby restaurant. When his food arrived, he noticed something was off. The bag was heavier than usual. Opening it, he found no food. Just a single, crumpled note: "We're watching you. Don't order from here again." Shaken, he called the restaurant. The confused employee checked their records and told him, "Sir, we never received an order from your name or address tonight." Then who sent the delivery? 6. The stalker delivery. Rachel ordered from her favorite burger joint at least once a week. One night, when her food arrived, she found a note tucked under the fries. "I see you like to order alone at night. Maybe I'll drop by when you're not expecting it." Heart pounding, she checked the delivery history. It was a different driver than usual, one she'd never had before. She reported it to the company. The response: "We have no record of a driver by that name." She checked the app again. The order history was gone. 7. The haunted takeout bag. Alex ordered from a new Thai place in town. When he opened the bag, he found an old, crumpled note tucked inside. "Help me. I'm trapped in the kitchen." At first, he thought it was a joke, but when he called the restaurant, the manager sounded confused and then terrified. "What did the note say?" the manager asked. When Alex read it, the man went silent before whispering, "That's impossible. The last chef who worked here disappeared 5 years ago, and he left behind only one thing: a note that said exactly what you just read." 8. The rotten delivery. A family ordered a large meal from a restaurant they loved, but when they opened the containers, they were shocked. The food was covered in thick, green mold, as if it had been left out for weeks, but the receipt showed it was made fresh. They called the restaurant immediately. A worker answered, listened to their complaint, then hesitated. Then they whispered, "You shouldn't have eaten that." Before they could ask what that meant, the line went dead. 9. The wrong name. Sophie ordered sushi, excited for a relaxing night. When the driver arrived, he smiled and said, "Order for Amanda." Sophie frowned. "No, I'm Sophie." The driver looked at the receipt. It read Amanda W., a name Sophie didn't recognize. Confused, she checked the app. Her order was still on the way. As she stood there, another delivery car pulled up. This time, a different driver handed her the exact same order, with her name on the receipt. When she turned around to question the first driver, he was already gone. 10. The vanishing restaurant. Ryan ordered from a new burger place in town. The food was amazing, so a few days later, he decided to order again. but when he opened the app, the restaurant was gone. Thinking there was an error, he drove to the listed address, only to find an abandoned building, windows boarded up, looking like it had been empty for years. Confused, he asked a nearby shop owner about it. The man's face went pale. That place. It burned down 3 years ago. No one's been in there since. But Ryan had just eaten their food 2 nights ago. 1. Room 303. The endless guest. James, a weary business traveler, checks into room 303 at the Riverside Grand Hotel. It's an old establishment with dim lighting and faded carpets. Exhausted, he collapses onto the bed. At 3:03 a.m., a loud knocking startles him awake. When he checks the peephole, the hallway is empty. Assuming it's a prank, he goes back to sleep. But the next night, it happens again, 3 knocks, always at 3:03 a.m. Determined to catch the culprit, he sets up his phone camera. The next morning, he checks the footage. The screen shows a shadowy figure standing at his door, knocking repeatedly. But then, his own face appears on the figure, terrified, begging for help. Freaked out, he rushes downstairs. The hotel manager turns pale when James tells him his room number. "Sir, there is no room 303. That floor was sealed off after a guest disappeared there in 1993. 2. The room that checks itself in. A boutique hotel in New Orleans frequently receives a reservation under the name Mr. White. There's no record of a credit card or ID, but the system keeps checking him in automatically. One night, a housekeeper enters the vacant room to clean. The chair is rocking as if someone had just gotten up. The TV plays a black and white news broadcast from 1963, but when she tries to change the channel, the remote doesn't work. Panicked, she rushes out and tells the front desk. When they check the hotel logbook, they find something disturbing. Mr. White was a real guest who died in that very room in 1963. His name has been appearing in the system ever since. 3. Room 1919. The Whispering Walls. A woman named Lisa books a weekend stay at an upscale hotel in Chicago. She's assigned room 1919, which seems normal at first, until she notices something off. At night, the walls seem to breathe. Whispers echo from the corners of the room, too faint to understand. Thinking it's the neighbors, she complains to the front desk. But the receptionist frowns. "Ma'am, there are no other guests on the 19th floor. In fact, we don't have a 19th floor." Lisa runs back to her room, only to find her luggage missing, her bed perfectly made, and the lights off, like she was never there at all. 4. The mirror in room 214. David, a solo traveler, checks into room 214 at a remote countryside inn. A large antique mirror stands across from the bed, its surface strangely warped. That night, David notices something unsettling. His reflection moves slower than him, blinking when he isn't, grinning when he frowns. On the second night, he wakes up to see his reflection standing beside his bed, watching him sleep. Terrified, he tries to remove the mirror. When it comes loose, he finds a hidden doorway behind it, leading to a bricked-up room. Hotel staff later reveal that the mirror was placed over the old servants' quarters, where a maid was trapped and starved to death. 5. The room that calls for help. A front desk employee at a New York hotel receives a frantic call from room 407. A woman is screaming, "Help me, please." Security rushes upstairs, but when they unlock the door, the room is empty, covered in dust, and has been unoccupied for years. Disturbed, the staff dig into the hotel's history and uncover an old report in 1975. A woman named Claire was attacked in room 407, but her body was never found. Some believe she's still trapped between worlds, endlessly calling for help. 6. Room 666. The One That Burns. A London hotel bans guests from staying in room 666, but one reckless traveler, Mark, bribes his way in for the thrill. At 3:00 a.m., he wakes up to a burning sensation on his arms and legs. When he turns on the light, blackened handprints cover his skin. The air is thick with the smell of smoke and burning flesh. In horror, he checks the walls, only to see faces pressing against the wallpaper, mouths open in silent screams. He runs out, but later discovers that the hotel was built over a church that burned down centuries ago, with the priest still inside. Room 666 was built directly over the altar where the fire started. 7. Room 512. The Guest Who Never Leaves. A hotel in Miami keeps receiving complaints from guests staying in room 512. They report hearing the shower running by itself, the TV switching to static, and the sound of wet footprints pacing the room. When a guest finally investigates, he wakes up to see a man standing at the foot of his bed, drenched and staring blankly. Later research reveals that in 1952, a guest drowned in the hotel pool, but his body was never found. Some say he never left. 8. The Room with No Key. At an inn in Vermont, there's a door at the end of the hall with no keyhole, no handle, just the number 000. Guests report hearing scratching and breathing from behind it at night. One man, curious, places his ear against the wood. A cold whisper repeats his name. The next morning, he wakes up with deep scratches down his arms. The hotel owner later reveals that the door was sealed shut over a century ago, after a guest was found clawing at the walls from the inside, trying to escape. 9. Room 404. No one stays twice. Travelers who book room 404 wake up gasping, convinced they're buried alive. The air feels heavy, and the walls seem to close in. One guest, desperate to understand why, rips up the carpet, and discovers hollow floorboards. Beneath them is an airless chamber. An old contractor finally confesses during renovations, a worker was sealed inside the walls, alive. 10. The room that knows your secrets. A journalist checks into a roadside motel, getting room 327. At midnight, a voice whispers his deepest, most personal secrets, things no one should know. The next morning, he finds a note on the nightstand. We all have secrets. Now you know mine, too. The ink is still wet. But when he asks the receptionist, she looks confused. Sir, that room has been vacant for years. The end.